Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic
Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, comics we want to read, and everything in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today we're doing Wolverine Origin, which... I don't know. Had you heard of this book before, John?
I think I had heard of it. Yeah, because I remember. I feel like I remember seeing
you talking about it or something, or
the hour like when that Wolverine that should not be mentioned came out. Like I remember being like, oh, I think it was based on this. I was like, oh, cool.
Oh, the original movie, yeah. Origin or whatever it's called, Origins. Yeah, but it wasn't based on this at all.
No. Yeah, no. This was a cool, fun little short and sweet story.
Yeah, and the weird thing about this is I think so it came out in the early 2000s, like when Marvel was just recovering from their like bankruptcy and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and like they were getting a lot of good creators creating interesting stories or like one-off stories. So they had like Marvel 1602 and this and a couple other Marvel Knight series and stuff that were bringing it back. You had Punisher Max starting around that time too and whatnot. So you had a lot of interesting things coming out at this time that were like, okay, Marvel's recovering. Let's do it. Back to old school. Let's write good stories or whatever. So
yeah, and that's cool that this is like the canon of like, this is where Wolverine comes from now.
Well, that's the thing is a lot of people didn't like this. Like if you were like, well, Wolverine was James Howlett, they're like, go fuck yourself if it's like a comic book person. Yeah. Like that's not my Wolverine kind of thing.
Not my Wolverine.
Even though it doesn't even if this was like a separate story, it never involves any of his other past or anything. So even if it was canon, like it doesn't hurt anything to be canon because it doesn't overlap anything that happens in the future books or anything. So, but for all of you who don't know, this is supposed to be like the actual origin story of Wolverine / Logan / James Howlett, as he is known in this book as a child. And like this is about him growing up in the late 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, in America, like before mutants were a thing or anything and all that stuff. So, but first things first, we got a little housekeeping to go. So just in case you didn't know, last week we missed the episode. We apologize for that, but John did have a death in the family.
Yeah, we had my mother-in-law passed, so we had to get some things together with that. So we took a little pause in this,
little break, yeah.
But we're back. We're ready to hit the ground running, and gonna have some good stuff coming out this month and for the holidays.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we're sorry guys, but sometimes real life takes precedent over the podcast. Yeah. So this is definitely one of those times. So but anyway, I hope you're doing okay, John, and your family's good and everything. And
I think we're at an okay point. So okay. Thank you.
Well, we love you guys, and send John your love if you want. Your condolences. Yeah, anyway, so this comic, like I said, was written in the early 2000s. It's written by Paul Jenkins. Have you ever read anything by Paul Jenkins off the top of your head?
The name doesn't strike me.
His name is always familiar to me, and I'm always like, why do I know that name? And I always forget that he wrote like my least favorite run on Hellblazer. And so that's why I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it is. So I always consider him like not like a bad writer, but just like, he's okay. Yeah, and like this is probably my favorite writing that he's done, if I had to guess, because I've read some of his other stuff and nothing ever like strikes me as but I will say out of this book the writing's like the least cool part of the book, I would say. I mean like not the story's good, but like the writing overall is like it's fine. It's not like amazing or like super impressive or anything. Like we were saying, this was contemporary with 1602, and the reason why I keep saying that is because it's the same artist as 1602. It's Andy Kubert. And it's the same colorist, so it has very familiar tones and shading and everything.
It definitely looked familiar as I was going through. I was like, this art looks...
Yeah, and it's all pencils, too, which is interesting. Like, most comics, you don't see the pencil strokes and everything in it. So, like, it's very cool to see... it just looks different, and it definitely looks like 1602. So, and if you're going to compare, like, Neil Gaiman writing, which is very, like, he's a top tier writer, to Paul Jenkins. I mean, Paul Jenkins is good. It's solid. You could hand this to anybody and be like, you'll enjoy this, especially if you are not a snob comic book person.
Yeah.
And you just want to like, oh, what's Wolverine's origin? You know, I'm a kid or some shit. Like, it's a good Wolverine origin story. And like I said, it's also good because it doesn't run into any of the other comics. So this might as well be his origin story because no one's ever told a different one. And even though people are like, James Howlett, fuck that, or whatever, like, tell your one then, you know?
Like, yeah, you got a better one?
You got a better one? And fucking write it then, you know? So, yeah, like I said, this one starts in the late 1800s where, like, a mansion has been built. And there's some, like, lore about the mansion where this family lives there. They're the Howletts. And they're, like, a rich family in Alberta, Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's like an aura about the castle, or not castle, but big mansion, because like apparently the mom had a son who died, an oldest son, and she's like crazy and like still lives in the mansion, but she's like
they never see her.
Yeah, you never see her. She's like a homebody or whatever, like just a hermit, I should say.
Yeah.
And it starts off with like this girl named Rose who's 12, and she's like getting moved into the castle to be like friends with the boy, the youngest boy, who didn't die, and his name is James Howlett. And we already kind of spoiled it, obviously, because we kept saying Wolverine was James, but you don't know that when you're reading this. You're like, okay, who's supposed to be Wolverine? And it's weird because like they do this thing to throw you off, which the groundskeeper of this place he looks just like Wolverine.
And his name is
Logan. His name is Logan. They're the Logans, though. It's their last name. So that's why you're like, wait, I thought his first name was Logan or whatever. So like that's the difference. But yeah, like, and he's like a drunk asshole who like beats his son, who everybody just calls Dog. Which is a great precedent to call a child. It's Dog. Hey, what's up, Dog? So like, but she is coming to be friends with James Howlett, and because he's like a sickly boy, and he's like, I don't know,
he's got allergies.
I just picture him like whenever they talk about Teddy Roosevelt as like a kid, like that's what he was, like a little sick, infirmed boy who had like a lot of allergies and like breathing problems and asthma and stuff. And then he was like, one day he was just like, fuck this, and he just started doing like push-ups and shit, and then he just like got past asthma or whatever, like shit like that. Is like this is the kind of story that is where, except he's a mute. This is a mutant story as opposed to
well, we don't know about Teddy Roosevelt for sure, but
yeah, we don't know if Teddy Roosevelt was a mutant. I mean, he did get shot in the chest and then did like an hour and a half speech or whatever after that. So
that's true.
You know, that's healing factor right there. This is actually the story of Teddy Roosevelt Wolverine. That's a comic.
There you go.
I want to see.
I just heard you just said the better origin.
Yes, that would be amazing. But anyway, so yeah, like this girl Rose is coming to be his friend, and like it's weird because there's a grandpa in the house who's like a Scrooge McDuck kind of guy who's like, my son's a pussy, like, you know, like you should be like, you know, harder on business and like whatever. And then he's like, yeah, and your servants should like know their place because he'll like give them dinner and shit. And they're like, he's like, you shouldn't treat them like people. They're servants, you know, like, and if you treat them like people, that's when they like start to hate you. And you know what? He's not wrong about that. In this, like, you start being nice to these people, and they start thinking they're people. They get feelings and shit, and then they get their feelings hurt. So like that's what we learned in this is like if you have servants, treat them mean and make sure they know they're not people. You call them Dog. And you call
that's why you call them Dog.
Yes. And then yeah, so there's old man Howlett, and then his son John, who's James's dad. And James is like 12 and Rose is like 12 at this time when they like meet up or whatever. And James, like we said, he doesn't seem like a very good businessman. He does seem like he's kind of throwing away his dad's money, which is kind of like a dick move. Like as I'm reading this time, I wasn't like, he doesn't seem like he seems like a nice person, but a really bad businessman, and he doesn't have any problem like fucking up his dad's money, which is weird to me. Like, not like if you're gonna be a nice person, wouldn't you be like, hey dad, I'm gonna do my own thing or whatever. Like I'm not gonna take your money away from you and just throw it away on my stupid ventures or some shit, you know. But he doesn't do that. He like because the dad's like lecturing him at first about like, you did this thing and it's completely wrong business wise. He's like, I know, but I just had a feeling or whatever. And it's like, and he's like, ha ha, oh well, you know, it's just money or whatever. It's like, hey, I don't know, but it just seemed like weird that he's so like frivolous. But I guess because he's like a rich boy, so he doesn't care, and he always thinks his dad's money's gonna be there or something.
Yeah.
So and then like we said, there's another boy who lives on the land, and his name is what's his actual name? Did they ever say his actual name in this? No. Okay, they just call him Dog, but he's like the son of Logan, the groundskeeper, and he's always like in like raggedy clothes, and like whenever he tries to play with or like James will try to play with this kid Dog, and like he always kind of treats him like not bad, but like, you know, just brushes him off like, hey kid, get away from me or whatever. And like we said, the oldest boy, there's a myth around the mansion that he died from some mysterious circumstance. So the wife you never see until like later on, and then the oldest brother is dead. So, and then basically these kids, all three of them actually, but at first it's just James and Rose, but like then Dog starts hanging out. And they don't even learn his name. The kids don't bother to learn his name in real life.
Just like, hey Dog.
Hey, what's up, Dog? And he's like, hey, and he's cool with it, I guess. But and so like you can very much see there's like a love triangle starting to happen with the kids, because like they're like 12, 13 now. Hormones
in the
are
puberty,
starting. Yeah. And you get like Dog has feelings for Rose, and James is kind of like just sickly or whatever, but he's not like into Rose necessarily like that at this time. But like Dog's just jealous that like he has to live down the hill and get beat by his dad like every night, and his dad's like a drunk and stuff too. And so he's just mad that he doesn't get to be like part of that higher up society or whatever.
Or every time he gets close, something bad happens. Like it's around Christmas time and he happens to be up around the house, and it's a time where John, the dad is like, hey, we saw you looking in the window, come in, you know, and spend time with us. And they're like, you know what? He won't mind because like James is out of the room. He's like, you can have one of his presents, a toy or whatever. And he's like, Dog is like, oh wow, look, acceptance and like things are getting better.
People like me. And then he brings it home to his dad, and his dad's like, what I tell you about talking to them people, boy?
Yeah, he like smashes the toy and takes off his belt
and then
like,
beats the shit out of him.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so it's like super fucked up. Or like things will happen on accident. Like and I thought this was kind of like some of the things that happen in this are a little like, really, that's what caused it? But like Dog comes up to James like while James is by the river, and he like surprises him, and then James sneezes and falls in the river, and then it's kind of like, I mean,
you pushed him in the river.
Yeah, like you pushed him in the river, but like, how did sneezing make you fall in the river?
You sneeze hard now.
I guess he just sneezed himself backwards into the river, and then he's like, "Oh, I can't swim," and then like, you know, he gets all mad, and that's when like the grandpa's like, "I told you these people aren't people. Like, why are you trying to hang out with them? Like, don't let them be around you." And yeah, so basically after that point where like James falls in the river, like Dog is like forbidden to hang out with them, and that's when like Christmas happens, and he's just looking in the window like, oh man, those presents look awesome, and that's when he gets invited inside. And then like at the same night, is that the night that he beats his son, and then so after he beats his son, then it's like, okay, now I'm never gonna be around these people, and I like hate them almost.
Yeah,
because my dad is like,
he like flips.
Yeah,
and like because the next time he has an encounter,
and it's like 2 years later after this point too, because that's like issue 1 ends with that like beating.
Yeah,
and then it's like the second issue, he's a little bit older. You could tell like he looks older. He looks more like Wolverine too. They keep alluding to like this kid being Wolverine, because now you're like, oh, it's not the dad. So maybe it's the son, you know, and they're both Logans, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and they're both getting like the chops all the way down to their...
Yeah, and they both have like black hair and stuff. And at this time, James has like blonde hair or gray or like brownish hair. It doesn't look anything like Wolverine. So they're like really trying to trick you.
Yeah, he's got like little puffy shirt on. He looks very scrawny and like.
Yeah, he doesn't look badass at all. But basically, Dog is older now, and so he's like, basically like, I'm gonna rape that Rose girl one day.
I was like, he just seemed handsy. It wasn't.
Well, the way they make it seem like he's okay, like she will be mine one day. Yeah. Like that's what it is. Not like necessarily I'm gonna rape her, but just,
I'm not defending him. I'm just saying like he came off as like, yeah, hey girl, what's up? Like, get all handsy with you. We're gonna. Yeah. And so it's hard because obviously it's a comic, so they're not going to go super far in it, kind of thing. But James is still sickly, and Rose has been with him like inside the house mostly now because he got even more sick after falling in the river. So for like a year or two, he's just been like so infirm. He's been in the house and can't do anything. But he's got his dog that he got last Christmas, and so like he loves that dog. And then and this is where the first time we see the mom. So Rose is like, now she's been in the house a lot because she can't go outside. And like every time she looks outside, fucking Dog's looking at her like, I'll go get you or whatever. So like he's like in the in the window all the time. And she's like, what the fuck? And so she's like scared to go outside too. And then she like starts walking around the mansion and sees the mom. Like she opens like I guess it's like the like Mrs. Potts of the house or whatever. Like she's like the do everything person, like the caretaker of the house. She's the
but like so she goes to her room to be like, hey, James didn't want to play. What should I do? And like she's like helping the mom put on like a corset, and you see the mom has like 3 slashes on her side, and the mom's like, get out of here, you like fucking,
how I can't believe this girl is here.
How dare you not knock, and you better not tell anybody about this. And so because of that, she like runs out of the house because she's scared. Yeah. And she runs into the dog for the first time.
Dog's like, hey, what's up, girl?
Yeah. And this is the part where like Dog's like, hey, I knew you were trying to avoid me, but I knew you also couldn't keep yourself away. Yeah. So he starts to like manhandle her, like grabs her arms and stuff, and you're like, what's he gonna do? And then James comes out and is like, hey everybody, I saw you was playing out here, and I was just figured we'd say hi like olden times or whatever. And then like that like lets Rose be able to slap Dog, and so she can get away. And then she goes and tells James's dad that like he tried to like do something. And so then James's dad goes up to Mr. Logan, and he's like, or Mr. Dog, what do you want to call him? And like basically says like, if you don't keep your fucking kid away from my son and everybody, and like learn how to discipline him, like you're both out of here. He's like, sure, no problem. And then James, I guess, is playing outside, looking for. I guess it's his brother's gravestone.
Yeah, I think so.
Because like it just says, John Howlett. So I'm like, I guess it's the older brother.
And the date isn't very far.
Yeah. And so like, I guess he's like saying a prayer, or he's just hanging out in the rain. But then Dog is like spying on him from the woods, and he comes out, and this is like super fucked up because James has his dog with him, and Dog starts to attack James.
He's like, can't believe you told on me. My dad beat me because of you.
Yeah, and he's like, you took Rose away from me, and she was mine, and like, now I'll never be with her, and you know what? I'm gonna take away something you love. And so, the little dog that James has, this is like only friend.
Yeah, it's like a little.
It's like a spaniel. Mix or something, but like it bites Dog on the foot, and Dog's like, son of a bitch, and then he like takes out his knife. And the dog's name is Callie. So that way, because there's Dog the man and Dog Callie. Yeah. So Dog Callie is being held up by his scruff, and fucking Dog the man cuts Callie's throat, slits his throat in front of James. Super fucked up.
Oh yeah, it was intense.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. And so then obviously James tells his dad about this, and he like John goes down and like basically says, I think they whip him because they say like you told me Like, you said if your son, or I said if your son does anything, you're going to be like responsible and shit. So I think they whip him and then they like throw him out.
Yeah, they're like, get off
the
property.
And so once they do that, it's like revenge time. So Mr. Logan is like, those fucking people think they're better than us. And like now there's no reason for us to like even care about them because like we're.
Yeah, I thought he walks in the room like with his bottle where
you thought he was going to beat Dog.
I thought he was going to beat up Dog real bad.
No, but he's like, you know what? You did good, son. You slit that dog Callie's throat, and that's what they deserve. So like actually, we're gonna like go back there together with our shotguns, and like we're gonna wreak some havoc. So we're gonna give them some payback.
Yeah.
So they go to the house, and they like the first thing they do is they surprise Rose and like the guy that like. I don't know what he would be called. He's like the Duckworth or whatever. Like he's the driver / he's like Albert.
Yeah.
Or Alfred, I mean, from Batman. So like he's like also is the tough man or whatever, like the guard, but also he is the driver and shit. So they knock him out and Rose is there. So they take Rose with them up.
Yeah, they're like, Rose is gonna like basically show her where the room.
Yeah.
I guess that the dad is in or something.
Yeah. So they take him at gunpoint up there. And then, like, they basically get the whole family kind of unawares in the middle of the night. They, like, point the gun at the dad. And this was the interesting part because I wasn't sure who shot the dad. It looked like Dog's dad did.
So they come in the room, and I think first they were in Elizabeth's room, the mom.
Yeah, they come upon the mom. And this was the other thing. I wasn't sure if maybe they were suggesting that Logan is the dad of the kids.
So I think so because it was a little confused, but I think that's the way it was. So like they come in the room and then they hear the commotion, and so the dad John comes in and is like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah.
And so now in the room you have Elizabeth, Logan, and Dog, his son.
Yeah.
You have Rose and John, the dad.
Yeah.
They're all in the room.
The way he's talking to him is like you never could keep your family happy, or you're like your missus happy, or whatever. So it's like, wait, were the two kids like actually this
the
grounds takers?
Yeah,
Logan's kids.
And Logan gets John down on his knees and he points his shotgun at his face and is like basically telling him to like pray or whatever. And then coming in the room is James, the son.
Yeah.
He's like, "Pa, what's going on?"
Yeah, and we should say this was a little. I forgot that he right now they're all like all the kids are like 16-ish.
Yeah.
So I was thinking he was younger when this happened, but it's like he's just, it's because they're wearing like old timey clothes, so he's in like a little sleeping robe or whatever, like a gown.
Yeah, it's a gown.
I'm like, what is he, like a baby or something? Like, but yeah, he's got a little gown on, so he looks younger, like from what he's wearing, but he's actually 16, the same age as everybody else. That's like the teenagers there. So he comes in the room, and right when he's like, I heard a noise, like the dad shoots, or Logan dad shoots John in the face and like blows his fucking face off. And then like, so James sees that, and then it's kind of like a free for all, and Logan Jr. is gonna shoot James now because he's like, like I'm gonna get you. And Rose actually hits the gun out of Logan's Jr.'s hands and saves him. So then James then runs at Logan Sr. and is like, "You killed my dad." And you don't see what happens, but he's like, "Get off me, you little runt." And he thought he's like punching him in the stomach. But then like the dad's like, "What'd you do to me?" And he like, I guess like slit his stomach open, and all of a sudden you see these bone claws come out of James's hands. So you see like, okay, this is where the bone claws happen.
Oh crap.
It was fucking cool.
Yeah.
I like this scene a lot. It was very like intense. There's just a lot of death going on in this room right now. And then the mom is like going even crazier because this happened, we're assuming, to the other son when he became like of age at some point. And so and I think they kind of are saying that like the dad killed him or someone, like basically the son died for unknown reasons, other than I think maybe he attacked the mom on accident or something happened.
Yeah, because she's got
the claws happened, and maybe his claws popped out, and then they freaked out, and she tried to like attack him or something, and then he scratched her, and then I think someone killed the son is what's kind of implied, and so they were hoping that James wouldn't have the same affliction, but he does, and so. And that could have been the original Logan. We don't know. He could have been Wolverine's brother. Dang it. Like if he had a cool older brother. I don't know what who would be called, but, Badger or something. And so like he's just in pain and he's like, doesn't know what's going on. He's like, what are my hands? And his mom's like, you fucking freak. Get out of here, whatever. Like I knew this would happen if we moved back to this house.
And he slashes, or he accidentally gets Dog's face.
Yeah, so like Dog kind of runs at him.
You killed my paw.
Yeah, and he's like, he doesn't know what's going on, and then he like, I think he slashed his face when he like was running to get his dad.
Okay.
So it was like all at the same time. It was like a weird, because his face, like he's already holding on to his face, already when this was going, like after the dad's dead, he's like holding onto his face.
Yeah, so. He's like holding his face, and I couldn't tell because at first it seemed like he was like, I can't see almost.
Right. Yeah. He's like, you slashed my face, and so, but this is like right after he kills the Logan's dad, or like Logan Senior, because that's their last name. So Logan Senior, Logan Junior. Logan Junior got his face slashed, and then James killed Logan Senior. And then he's like, Mama, what's going on? And then Mama's like, get away from me, you fucking abomination, and like slaps him.
Yeah.
And like goes all crazy and shit. And so he's like, what? No, Mama. And then she's like, get away from me, get away. And so like he runs out.
He runs out of the house.
He runs out of the house. And then this is why we think that like the mom was in love with the groundskeeper.
Yeah, because like, so Rose runs after James out of the house.
Yeah.
And then Elizabeth, the mom, is there, and she's like, picks up one of the shotguns.
Well, before that, she like goes over to the dad, who's that Logan Senior, who's dying, and she's like, oh, Thomas, what have I done?
Yes.
So it's like, wait, why do you know his fucking name? Like, he's Thomas now. Okay, that's weird. And then like, like, basically, I think what happened is everybody's hiding the fact that she cheated on John, and I don't even think John knows that. I think the dad did know, like his dad,
the grandfather.
That's why he kept calling him soft and like, your fucking wife's fucking around behind your back, and like that's why I kept this guy on, so he wouldn't tell this secret, even though he's like a drunk, and we don't like, we don't want his kid and shit and all this. So it's like, yeah, like I think this is like a big family secret or whatever. So anyway. Rose follows James out because James is like, oh, what's going on? And like immediately he's like, who are you? What's going on? Like he already has like memory loss, like his mind is like blanking, trying to forget all this shit.
I guess, yeah, because
hiding
it
it from him
out or whatever.
Yeah, and then if you go back to Elizabeth up in the tower, he's like, or she like grabs the shotgun, puts it to her temple, and shoots herself in the head. Kills herself, and then like the only person left alive in that room
is
Dog or Logan Jr. So, and he's got his face is all fucking slashed and shit. So Rose and Logan run away because they're like, basically Rose is scared that like they're gonna think it was her for some reason. I guess that could be possible back then, but now the only person to witness it is a Dog, and Dog's gonna be like, it was that Rose girl. And so basically that's what he does. So Rose and James are hiding out, and he's like, doesn't remember anything. He like barely remembers that like her name is Rose or whatever. And like, oh yeah, you're that girl that used to work for my dad, right? Or whatever. So he's like having a fugue state basically because of everything that just happened, all the trauma.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically Dog tells the grandpa once the grandpa finds out that like, oh, this shit happened at my house. They go there. Everybody's dead in the room except Dog, and they're like, "What happened, boy?" And he was like, "It was Rose, sir. She had a gun, and like he led them to there or whatever." So basically, they're saying she killed everybody for some reason. We don't know why, I guess. And so
pesky hormones,
I guess that's what it is. And so like Rose tries to go to like take them to her family and stuff, but her family's like, I don't know who you are because you decided to leave me and go up live there with those Richie Riches. So like we're like not family anymore because you made bad choices or whatever. And so they end up having to go back to the mansion, and the grandpa is like, how dare you show up here? And she's like, well, I don't know what dog told you, but he's wrong or whatever. And like, this is your kin and it's your blood, and you have to. He's like, there's no blood of mine. Like, and even if there is blood in there, he's a fucking animal or something like that.
Yeah, that's what made me think that Elizabeth may have been able to, because he's like, yeah, no grandson of mine. And it's like, oh, so was the first one only his grandson, and
we don't even know.
James
both might not have been.
It's
yeah. Like, is the mom the transfer of the X gene, or is, you know what I mean? Like, or is the dad? I don't know.
The X gene? Huh? Yeah.
Exactly. And so basically the grandpa's like, get the fuck out of my sight. If you ever come here again. Yeah. Here's a bunch of money, but if you ever come here again,
It was weird that he had like even though he was like, get the hell out of here, he was like, well, do it like, here you do, like, I'm giving you a way to do it, like, not just like leave him out.
Yeah, well, I mean, or else they're gonna have to come back, right? Like, there's no other way to get him out of there.
I guess.
Just like get the fuck as far away as you can. So she takes him from Alberta to British Columbia, which is far away in Canada.
Yeah, if you're not from Canada, then
yeah. It's across the continent of Canada. They take it on a train. They go to like, this is like olden times. So it's basically next to like the Yukon and stuff is kind of what they're saying. So it's like where people were looking for gold and all those people were coming up, mining and all that stuff. So they go to a mining town and they're basically like, we'll work for food in this hardcore mining town. But this is the only thing that was kind of like, I bet they would have been like murdered right away had they actually been in.
Yeah, because they're only
town.
Again like 16, 17.
Yeah, and she's like a pretty girl, and like there's always like
some
men who
kid.
haven't seen a woman in 2 years or whatever. Like, the only thing they've seen is a rock in the shape of a boob. All right, so like they're let's just say they're deprived men, and they're like also horrible people generally. So not the best combination of a person, but they're accepted somewhat in this. Yeah. So
I guess the head of the colony.
His name's Smitty, which is a little creepy. He's all young and shit in this, but then like she's basically like, I can read and write, and like no one else can, I guess. So he's like, all right, like you'll be my office assistant or some shit, and you'll help me do the books and stuff. And she's like, okay. And then she's like, well, he can work too. And he like looks at his hands. And this is like the whole thing, like his claws never were retracted for like the whole time they were traveling, and she had to keep gloves on his hands. And then like when Smitty looks at him, they're like fully gone and retracted and healed over now. So she's like, oh, okay, like his body's been changing. And this whole time she's like starts keeping a journal so that we know what's going on, like in everybody's head and everything, in her head at least, and like what's been going on through the time changes. So
I did like Smitty. He's like, because he looks at his hands, he's like, look at those clean hands. This boy's never worked a day in his life. Like pretty soft hands. Look at him. And so basically they give him like the job of like wheelbarrowing. Push the cart.
Yeah, carts of coal or whatever the fuck, rocks, I guess. They're looking for ore, so I guess ore rocks down back to the smasher or whatever. I don't know how they get gold out of ore, but melt it with cyanide or something like that. I think that's what they do. But yeah, so like he's been doing that for a while. Like that's like the end of issue 3 is like he starts that job and then he's still doing it. I don't know. The timeline on this isn't 100% like how far, but he seems like he's maybe been like a couple months by issue 4 because he's still doing the job now, but he's not like great at it. But he's like. And he's kind of weird. He's still like a pussy. Like he's still like, he'll drop stuff. He's like, man, I'm crying. And it's like, there's no crying in the early 1900s mining camps. Like, it's just like there's no crying in baseball.
You get back to work, boy. Yeah, crying.
And so like, yeah, it's like Smitty's kind of looking out for him though, like protecting him from some people. And there's one guy in particular. This is kind of like Shawshank Redemption or some shit. Where like there's one guy that just takes a shine to young James Howlett, and like he doesn't go like try to rape him or anything, but he's just like got a fucking hard on for James. Like he wants to just beat the fuck out of him anytime he can. And that dude's name, I don't remember what his name is. What's his name?
He's the cook, and they call him Cookie.
Yeah, they call him Cookie. So this dude's like a big fat guy. He's like tall and everything, and he just gives James a hard time whenever he runs into him.
He gives out Blob vibes. I don't think he is the Blob, but he definitely like he's a large mass of a person.
Yeah, and that's one thing about this is they kind of like they have characters that remind you of future characters. So one of the characters later on kind of reminds you of Sabretooth. This guy kind of reminds you of the Blob, like you said.
Yeah.
And so I think they do that on purpose, obviously, because it's kind of like familiar as an ex-reader, but it's different enough that you don't like need to know that necessarily. And so like James at first, he's just kind of doing his best, but he's not very good at it. And then like Smitty just has to always watch his ass because Cookie's now like trying to beat him up all the time. Then like I'm assuming we fast forward in the middle of this issue like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, we have to because it's complete overhaul.
Yeah, like Rose now ain't a 16-year-old girl. She is an attractive woman, and they like start off by showing her taking a bath in the river, naked, and
very suggestive placement of
shadows and shirts and leaves and whatnot. And then they like interweave that with cuts of Logan, who's like hunting a deer, and he's like doing it by hand and like with a spear.
Oh yeah. Oh, we didn't mention specifically. So he's Logan now because when they got there, they asked his name of who's the boy, and she's like, "Oh, it's my cousin, Logan."
Yeah, because they don't want anybody to find out who he was from back in the day. So they don't want him to know he's James Howlett. They're like, his name is Logan, just the first name that came to her head, I guess. And so everybody calls him Logan now. And now he's like becoming a man. God damn it. He's like hunting on his own. And it's good that he's hunting because Cookie and like just generally in the camp, there's not a lot of food anyway. I mean, Cookie's like an asshole to them. So he gives them like less rations than they should have. And so like he's helping supplement some people in the camp and everything with deer meat and all this stuff. So, and like, so she's taking a bath and like, she feels like she hears noises in the woods. She's like, who is that? Someone's spying on me. You better come out. And then it's James, or it's Logan now with his deer, and he's all like hardcore looking.
Yeah. And he's definitely falling into the shape of Wolverine,
as we know. Like he's become more animalistic. He's got his sense of smell now. Like over these last couple pages, he definitely like all his powers start coming into effect. Like obviously we saw his healing factor was starting, but now he's getting like his smell.
He's getting buff.
He's getting buff. And that buff might just be because he's like working now, but also he's getting horny because like it says like he's just following his urges. Like he's really good at hunting now because he just like knows that. And then when he says, I'm just, because she had asked like, how do you get so good at hunting? Like you've never done it before. And he's like, I don't know. I'm just following an urge. And like, as he says that, there's like a shot of her boobs and he's like looking sideways at like a side glance at her boobs. And so it's like, oh, he's like obviously falling in love with her, but like she's, I don't know, they're too close as friends or whatever, as like she's pretending to be his cousin. Back then I don't think it fucking mattered if you married your cousin or whatever,
but still like, it's they've also been friends
for a long time. He's in the friend zone for sure. And so, but he's just getting stronger and more buff and everything, and
this just goes to show you it doesn't matter. You could be a geek nerd, or you can be become the big buff strong guy. Still, if you're in the friend zone, you're in the friend zone.
In the zone, all right. and yeah, so but in the meanwhile, she's like writing this nice diary to kind of like he doesn't ever want to talk about his past. And she's like, every now and then she'll be like, Logan, like I need to tell you about and he's like, I don't want to hear it. Like, don't tell me shit. I'm like Logan now. I don't want to know about anything before that.
Yeah, he's like, you wanted the things to be different and change. Well, I'm changed now. I'm Logan.
Yeah.
The past is past.
And so she's been like writing a diary this whole time, like for him, that's like going to tell him everything about his past. And like basically that's just like kind of left in the air for a bit, but we know that's a thing. And then Smitty is still protecting him from Cookie, and Cookie's still being an ass, but he's able to like defend himself now. But like you're always wondering, like, is he gonna kill Cookie like with his claws? Is he gonna come out on accident or some shit? And it never does.
Now Smitty almost kind of steps in like right when things
you're like
heavy.
Yeah, right when he's like, oh, he's gonna pull his claws out, and then like Smitty comes, saves Cookie basically, but Cookie doesn't know that. And so every now and then, because like Logan's mad, he's like, I gotta go find my roots or whatever, and like my savage roots. And like so then he like goes out in the wild and will like this is like the first time this happens, but after this fight with Cookie where Smitty saves him for like the last time, he like runs out into the forest and he sees like a big ass wolf, and then he gets surrounded by the wolf pack, and then he kind of like automatically is like snick, and like his knives come out, his bone knives, and then like the wolves kind of like at first they're like gonna fight him, and then he kind of like submits to the wolf. I don't know why he submits to the wolf, but it's like he like kind of doesn't want to fight.
I like the panel because it shows both of their eyes together, the wolf eye and then Logan's eye, and it's like they see each other. It's almost like that. I guess he sees the animal in him.
Yeah.
And so and that is the cool thing because like obviously that big wolf is like the alpha of that pack, and so he's like and he's like okay, and like they start howling, and I guess he like howls with them, whatever, and they're like okay, you're a member of this pack now.
Yeah, like we're all pack members. So now. It's been, I'm assuming, a couple more months. They cut to the next issue. They cut like a couple more months ahead, and now he's like every night or every couple of nights running out with the wolf pack. He's one of them. He's helping them get deer.
I liked him running with the wolf pack.
I'm down with that.
These are cool.
It's cool. I'm buying all this. Like once again, I'm fully on board with this story.
Yeah, for Wolverine, this 100% works.
I don't understand why it gets so much hate. I mean, yes, it's a little silly, but also it doesn't involve anything else, and it doesn't collide with anything else from past issues of X-Men or anything. So I'm like fully okay with this, happening. But anyway, yeah, he's running now, and he looks also way more mature. So that's why I was like, is this supposed to be months or years?
A year or two, yeah.
Also Smitty, who's been like dark hair in his beard and stuff, in this issue starts getting a little grayer and stuff, so he seems older. So I don't know if it's like years have gone by or months. They don't really say. But basically, now Wolverine is like hunting deer with this wolf pack every now and then, and like he like makes it easy for the wolves because he just like stabs the deer in the neck and it goes down and it bleeds out, and then the wolves can like eat it, and the deer doesn't have to get eaten alive, which is nice for the deer, I guess. But yeah, so then we see like now, like Logan comes back from his hunt, and we see something's been happening, kind of not behind his back necessarily, but Smitty and Rose have been
some kind of natural
this relationship's been growing where he's been like, you're so good at reading books, like I have books.
Yeah, I can bring you books.
I can bring you lots of books.
You like books? I can bring you books.
I've been all over the world, and like, let me tell you about it, little lady. So like, Rose and Smitty have been getting a little relationship feelings and whatnot. And Logan, we already know that he likes Rose, but he's like, he doesn't know about it at all. So, and like he comes in, and they're like, "Oh, Logan, I was just showing her a book, not that I would be hitting on her or anything, And he's like, "Oh, whatever, like, cool." Like,
yeah, he's not really perceptive to anything.
Yeah, he's like oblivious. But at the same time, I guess this whole time he's just been like wheelbarrow man the whole time, even though he's been like strong and everything. Like,
he's strong wheelbarrow man. He can do bigger.
They were saying that he like basically, because of him single-handedly, production is up in the mine or whatever. Yeah. So like he's doing so good at mining.
And they even call, because they were even like, man, he's so like strong and like fierce and stuff. He's like a little Wolverine.
Yeah, and that's where he gets his name, because everybody starts calling him like a Wolverine because he's willing to like go the extra mile and dig super far and all this shit. And so he never lets up. And so Smitty's like, and this could have been like, you could have done a twist where Smitty was evil in this, and it would have been, you could have like not had Cookie been in this book and had Smitty been like the evil guy or whatever. But Smitty's like, hey, you've been doing such a good job like doing wheelbarrow trips. Why don't you like have a new, like there's a new position that opened because this guy blew off his hands. Like Dynamite Man position open. It's higher pay because it's like hazard pay, I guess. And if you want to make some money, all you got to do is like handle this explosive dynamite with your hands.
Yeah, you could be our demolitions guy. And this is kind of fun too, because he's like, I'm going to show you one time how to do this.
Yeah, all it is, you just light this fuse, and it's 1 minute.
1 minute, exactly.
Yeah. So you run your ass, you count while you're doing it, and it blows up. And he's like, see, it's pretty easy. So now Wolverine's got all the training he needs, or Logan or whatever. He's a dynamite man for this mining company, and like basically everybody else in the town is like now fully on board with Logan. They're like, he's a great guy, we love him. Everybody else I would imagine would be jealous in my mind, but like no one would like Wolverine. He's like making them look like they're not working hard and shit like that, even though,
maybe it's enough that like maybe because he's producing so much, maybe the town is prospering again.
Yeah, it does look like there's more houses and stuff. So but yeah, and Wolverine's like a genuine dynamite man. Like he picks it up right away and he's doing a good job. And so then because of that, Cookie, he's jealous. He's like, everybody's talking about this Wolverine. Fuck Logan. I hate him.
I hate that guy.
Yeah, so like he goes over to the dynamite shed and cuts one of the dynamite sticks a little short. And I guess no one notices how long the fuse is when they light it, which is weird. But you'd think Logan would be like, wait a second.
This one's shorter.
This one's 3 inches, not 12. That means it's going to go off sooner. But anyway, he uses the dynamite that's been shortened by Cookie. And all of a sudden there's like a dynamite cave in the next couple days. And Smitty and Rose, who were together again without Logan, they're warned, like someone runs in and is like, oh my God, there's been a collapse of the mine.
Explosion and a collapse of the mine.
Yeah, a cave in. And so now like they all run over there and they're trying to get everybody out, and Smitty's like, I'm not leaving until I find everybody who was dead. And so like they're like, he's lost, his body's too far in. And he's like, no, I will find his body. And so like Smitty keeps digging and they find Logan wrapped around a child. I guess it was a child miner who was helping out. And like underneath one of the wheelbarrows, he like hid. And so he was actually fine and the kid was fine. And he like saved this kid's life, even though the dad apparently died of that kid.
But otherwise, I think 5 people died in this.
Yeah,
explosion.
5 people died. Cookie's an asshole, killing 5 people just to get Logan. But yeah, so everybody's now even more enamored with him because he saved a child's life and he came out without a scratch. And even Smitty's like, I don't know how the fuck that happened. And like, I'm not a praying man or I don't believe in God, but like you just keep doing what you're doing, all right? I ain't gonna ask any questions, kind of thing. Like, and so yeah, like then we get like the last time Smitty and Cookie and Logan fight is like basically Logan runs into Cookie in the middle of the night, and Cookie is going through people's cabins of the dead, the people that died.
Mm-hmm.
And stealing shit. So like the people that he murdered, he's going through their cabin stealing shit. He's like, oh, this is silver or whatever. Like they won't need that anymore. Ha ha ha. And so like Logan finds him and just starts beating the shit out of him.
It's like 5 men died today, you asshole.
Yeah. And so Cookie thinks, oh, Smitty ain't here to save your ass. But what he doesn't realize for some reason is that Logan has been, pounding rocks and all this shit for like 10 years. This is pretty good workout, I would think. And so while Cookie's just been cooking stuff and eating stuff. So Logan beats the shit out of him, and then he wants to kill him, but he lets him live. And because he's so mad at that, he like runs back to the cabin, and he's like all excited. He's like, you ever fucking attack me again, Cookie? Like, you're a dead man. And he runs back to the cabin after that. And he's like about to run in. And he's like, Rose, guess what? I got to tell you what happened. And he looks in the window and Smitty and Rose are making out. And he's like, what the fuck? So he gets all pissed. And he's like, no, Jesus, Rose. Like, he gets all mad. And then, like, he runs into the wolves. And, like, the alpha, for some reason, decides to challenge him. I don't know if, like, the aggression is coming through. And he's just like, wolves, like, oh. You're angry. I'm angry.
Calm down, boy.
Like, dogs feel aggression or whatever. So he fights the alpha and he beats the alpha. He doesn't kill the alpha, but he beats the alpha.
And Alpha's like, okay, I submit to you.
Yeah. And so now Wolverine's
the alpha of
the
the pack.
Alpha. And then we cut back to I guess the mansion. It's kind of dilapidated, and the only person living there is the old man. And the old man is talking to someone. We don't know who it is. And he's like, before I die, I need you to do something for me. I need you to promise to find my grandson, James. And the guy's like, oh, I'll find him. Of course I'll find him. I'll go to the ends of the earth like a dog. And then we see the face of the man, and he's got 3 scratches on his face, and it's Logan Jr. or the dog boy.
And he is ripped.
Yeah, he's ripped. And this was like the alluding to kind of Sabretooth.
Yeah, he's very much has a Saber-toothy feel to him. Yeah.
For sure. And so like, yeah, he's like, oh, I'll find him. Don't worry, old man. It's weird that like the old man would like raise this boy as like his son now or whatever. So obviously this boy, he's like wearing super nice clothes now. So he's lived in this castle with old man Howlett this whole time as like his surrogate son, I'm assuming. And so then we get the last issue starts. Logan, the actual Logan, who we never learned his name, right?
No, just Dog.
Just Dog.
Dog or Logan Jr.
We'll call him Logan Jr. to not confuse James Logan.
Yes.
This is going to get confusing, I'm sure. But so
Wolverine and
we'll call him Wolverine, and then we'll call him Logan Jr.
Yeah.
So, okay. So Logan Jr. is now in Alaska looking for James Howlett because that's what he thought he came up here as. And there's a tracker that he finds, and the tracker's like, oh, James, I never heard of that name, but there is a guy who resembles who you're talking about, and he's got a woman with him with red hair. She's real pretty. And he's like, that's him. That's them. And he like snaps.
Thanks for the information, old man.
Yeah, and he like snaps the dude's neck, which is super fucked up. And then Wolverine is all mad now because, you know.
He's very jealous of Smitty.
Very jealous. And he's like, I thought me and you would be together. And like, you know, why ain't we or whatever? She's like, well, you know, I fell in love with Smitty, and you're kind of like a brother more than a lover or whatever.
You're like a brother to me. I love you.
I love you like a brother. And so he gets mad about that, but Smitty and her are about to leave, and she tells him like, look, we're getting married. We love each other, and like we want to have a family and stuff. We're going to try to move to the big city. And,
I mean, you could come with us.
Yeah, you can come with us like a brother.
Be our friend always.
Yeah, we go hang out and watch TV or whatever and be best of friends, but nothing else. And Logan ain't having that. He's like, no, I is either I'm with you or like you're with me or like I can't be with you guys. So
it was cool the way she alluded and how the rest were, because she's like, well, all right, well, Smitty went to town to get some money and to get us what we need to get out of town.
Yeah.
So Logan's like, okay, well, I'm frustrated with all this. I'm going to go to town too.
Yeah. And so like what Smitty's doing is he's like entering a fight contest, and like basically it's, you know, whoever wins the contest gets a shit ton of money, and that's what he needs to get out of town.
Yep.
With Rose. So he's like, I'm the strongest motherfucker here. I've traveled the world. I've sailed with, you know, all these people and everything, been to a bunch of countries and shit. I'm a big, strong man. I beat the fuck out of Cookie all the time. Like that's, we know he's like a strong dude. Even though now he's like aging, he's got some gray in his beard. Yeah. But he's definitely a good fighter, we know. So he enters this contest, and we see in the bar there's another guy who who's interested about entering the contest, and he's talking to Smitty, and he's like, "Are you thinking about entering, friend?" And Smitty's like, "Yeah." He's like, "What's the name of that gal of yours?" And he's like, "Oh, her name's Rose. She's great." And, you know, like he's like, "Oh, really? That's interesting. I used to know a redhead named Rose, but whatever." So while Smitty entered the contest, Logan comes in, and Smitty doesn't see it because he leaves, but Logan enters the contest, and so does this mysterious.
Well, I think Logan enters because he realizes Smitty entered.
Yes, like, and he wants to fight him.
I'm going to beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, he wants to beat him. But then now Smitty comes back home, and Rose is all pissed. It's like, no, you can't fucking fight. And he's like, did Logan sign up? He's like, I didn't see Logan sign up, but I could beat the fuck out of him.
He's a scrawny, don't you remember he's scrawny compared to me?
Yeah, I had to save him so many times up here. And she's like, I do not want you to fight. And he's like, well, look, this is how we're gonna get the money. So like if I don't fight, we don't go. So I'm fighting, and like that's all that he needs to say because this is back in the day.
Yeah,
and so
yeah, he's like, I can't believe a woman would like stand up to me on this. Like, this is how it's going down.
Yeah, and so she's like, okay, fine, I accept that. So she leaves the journal with a note that says like, to my dearest James, because she wants him to read that book to finally like learn his past and his history, and to know like your name's not Logan, your name is James, and all this stuff. So, and then we see there's three main fighters of this tournament who are kicking ass. There's like there's Smitty, there's Cookie, and there's Logan.
Yeah, Cookie entered this too, so the big cook entered this contest as well.
Yeah, and so he thinks he's gonna beat up Logan and all that shit, but the man, we'll call him Dog, or Logan Jr. He's like, hey Cookie, you're the first one to fight Logan. Why don't you use this, while you fight him? And he throws him like some brass knuckles. So the first punch, of course, Cookie gets to punch Logan. But now Logan ain't a little bitch and he's got a healing factor. So he basically, I thought this was like the only weird panel. I couldn't tell what was happening, like how this happened. But basically Wolverine, like in the fight, is like dodging, and then he like throws Cookie over his shoulder or something, and then Cookie lands on him like a wrestling move kind of thing. They're doing like wrestling moves from like WWE and shit. But basically he's able to beat the fuck out of Cookie, and like Cookie's like, please don't kill me. And you see like they do a shot of like the bones about to protrude out of his knuckles, and he's like, fine, I won't kill you this time, but don't make me change my mind. And then like the big fight happens, because that was like, I guess, the penultimate fight. Yeah. And Rose comes in and sees Smitty and Logan facing off. And Logan and Smitty, like they're like a match, but obviously Logan's got the healing factor and Smitty's a little older. So like Smitty's, doing okay, holding his own, but Logan's getting the better of him, and he starts choking him. And he's like, I never want you to forget that you took her from me. I loved her and you stole her. And like Smitty's like, if you really loved her, you would do what's right by me and like let us go or whatever, or like right by her and like let us go. Like if you really loved her, you'd let her go free or whatever. And like Logan has a change of heart, and he's like, comes up to his ear and he goes, hit me.
Yeah, make it look good. This was cool. I liked it, because it was like, oh wow, like you see he does like he's not just an animal. Yeah,
he's got a heart. But he also, like, Smitty also knows he could have killed him. Yeah. And so, like, you let Smitty know I could have killed you, but also just knock me out so you win and you guys have a good time in the future or whatever. So, then at the end of this, like, Smitty's like, hey, like, no hard feelings, thanks for being such a good guy.
Thanks for throwing the fight for me, Wolverine.
Yeah. And like, like basically Logan's like, if you ever hurt her, I will fucking find you. Like he does like the dad talk or whatever for like a daughter or some shit or whatever. Like if you ever hurt her, I will kill you. And he's like, don't worry, like we're all good. And then
somebody's like, yeah, we're gonna go away. You can be the new foreman of the mining town now.
He's like, yeah, whatever. Like, okay, I guess so. And then out of nowhere, Logan Jr. in his like animal furs comes out, and he attacks Logan from the back, or Wolverine from the back. And he's like, what's the matter, Jamie boy? You forget where you came from?
You remember your old pal, Dog?
Yeah, and he like throws off his coat, and he's like super buff now. And then everybody's like surrounding them because they all start seeing this fight happening. And like basically this is like James doesn't want, or like Wolverine doesn't want to fight him, but he's basically trying to make him kill him. Like because he doesn't even remember at first like what's going on, because he's like Dog saying like, your mom, blah blah blah, and like this. He's like, my mom? Like, what are you talking about? And like slowly things start coming back to him, and he says like, first I got to see how little James remembers how I was the one who killed his papa, and you two got the blame. And then right when he says that, he like remembers everything. I think like his eyes open wide.
Yeah. And
then James remembers, like that's right. Like I remember everything. He goes, no. And he stands up and he just starts like beating the fuck out of Dog. And he's like about to kill him. He like, at this time, Rose and everybody run out as well. They see this fight's going on. She's like, Logan, wait. And like his claws pop out, and everybody, this is the first time everybody's seen like his claws. She's like, what the fuck? And like everybody's like, yeah, what's going on? And like she runs up and she's like, Logan, no. And like he's reaching back because he's about to like swipe and like do the finishing blow on Dog. And she runs and kind of like trips through the crowd and like falls into his claws that were like pointed backwards towards the crowd. And this is the only thing I was like, really? But I guess it's like olden times where there's no like penicillin or anything if you get an infection. But basically he stabs her through the shoulder, like the top of the chest and shoulder, with both of his claws. And like it shows her like passing out and she's like bleeding out. And like he runs away, basically. It just cuts to black, but then like Logan obviously runs into the forest because the next thing we see is Smitty being like, no, like, Logan, where are you? You got to come back. Like, it's not your fault. Like, you know, like, basically, like, you need to come back. You remember your old pal Smitty. You know, he's basically like, we lost her. We lost our precious Rose or whatever. And Logan ain't having any of that. Then we see, like, back at the cabin of Rose's cabin and Smitty's cabin, Cookie is in there rummaging through all the shit, and he finds the journal, and he's like, reading. He's like, nope, and he like throws it in the fire. So the whole history of Logan or James Howlett gets thrown away and burned
and lost forever.
Yeah, and that's the end. It just ends like that. So it's kind of like a quick ending. It comes like I wanted it to continue. I wanted to see what happens with Smitty and, you know, once he finds him or whatever. But Logan just runs away with the wolves, and Smitty never catches him. And so we assume like Smitty just goes off to be a drunk miner or whatever, and Logan runs off with the wolves, and you know we find out what happens later on when he gets.
And eventually he goes to Japan, and then
yeah. And that was one of the things they alluded to was like Smitty gives him like a book about Japan, so that's why he like goes to Japan and stuff. So
yeah,
you get like an interesting, like fun history going on with that. So, yeah, man, what'd you think about that?
It was fun, you know. Like I said, I like it. It was a cool origin telling. It was unique. I like the twists in it, because I didn't know where it was going. I was like, God, Wolverine's dad is a dick beating the shit out of him. I'm like, oh, it's not Wolverine. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they had a couple like good, you know, twists,
solid twists,
especially if you've only watched the show or something like as a kid and you pick this up, because that's kind of my history with this book was. I had watched the X-Men TV show, but I never really read any X-Men comics. And then when I got to like the mainland after we lived in Hawaii and I could go to a comic book store, I think my brother was like, oh, check this one out. It's got really good art. And it's the same guy that did 1602. And I read it. I'm like, oh, that was really good. You know, like I had fun. And then like come to find out like every comic book snob is like, James Howlett. Like,
I like the bone claws.
Well, that fits in with the, you know, the original history of, because at this time, like the whole Weapon X thing was he did have bones before, you know, like, so like that fits in with what was going on, because I think in like the 90s, like Magneto rips off the adamantium skeleton from him and he has bone underneath. So like that's 100% lore or like continuity now. So like I don't see why this is such a hated book, but it's definitely controversial to some people. But I liked it. I mean, I think it's a solid story, solid art. It is like I said, it's kind of like a frivolous story because it doesn't have like big, you know, things that happen like that matter later on. But it's good also for that reason because it can't be like disproven or whatever by like future continuity. So it's just kind of like, unless someone else writes a better, you know, origin of Wolverine, like this one pretty much holds up to me at least. So
this is Wolverine Origin for me. Like it's great. It was solid.
Yeah. So what would you give this one, John?
I would give it a 7. You know, like I said, it was a good read. The art is great. Like I said, I like 1602. I thought it looked familiar. I mean, for the most part, everything was pretty understandable, pretty easy to tell. The only thing was like you said, when he was younger and he first has the claws come out when he kills the Logan Senior.
Yeah,
it was kind of hard because of his attire, not because.
Yeah, he looks like a little boy, but he's not a little boy. He's like 16 or some shit.
But yeah, for the most part, I loved all of the scenes of him running with the wolves and stuff.
Yeah, you were like
really badass.
You were hearing like of Wolf and Man in your head.
Yeah.
Like hell yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would also give this one a 7. I think it's a really solid read, especially if you're like a casual fan, like if you've watched the TV show or you like really like Wolverine, but you don't know where to start or anything. Like this is a good, just pick it up and you get like kind of the history of Wolverine, even though it's not continuity for some people or whatever. But like, I mean, basically the only continuity that changed that really matters is his name was James instead of Logan or whatever. But you know, no big deal.
James, Logan, Wolverine, Howlett, Weapon X 23. No, not
X23.
Yeah, Weapon X.
Yeah, there you go. So, on that note, if you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email us at planestrains.comicbooks, all one word, at gmail.com.
And don't forget to check out our Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channel for exclusive content. We got some fun stuff coming up. So give us a check out, and thanks for coming along with us on this one.
Oh, and before I forget, next week we're going to do 300 by Frank Miller. It's kind of like a fun, like
300. What's that about?
Well, you know, it's that movie that came out. Everybody loves that movie, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, that Zack Snyder original movie.
Something about Sparta or I don't know.
Like that. I don't know.
Kicking some people.
Anyway,
it's a 9 Inch Nails song or something.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, if you guys, I don't know if you guys seen the movie or not, but the movie's good. I mean, it's close to the comic, but I suggest reading the comic because it's a Frank Miller original from Dark Horse, and it's fucking awesome. So if you guys want to read along or just have us spoil it, we'll see you guys next week
on the next one.
Bye. Well, folks, hope you enjoyed that episode.
If you did and you'd like to follow us on social media, our Facebook is Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, and our Instagram is @Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recommendations to add to your weekly pull list.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.